This is my special education interview for Module 3. I chose 3 individuals that had varied experience. The special education teacher had 19 years of experience teaching, 3 of those years being in special education. The administrator was a social studies teacher for 6 years and is currently an associate high school principal for the past 3 years. The paraprofessional has been a special education paraprofessional for the last 8 years. The child find procedures, each one of them answered them quite differently. The special education teacher talked about the student intervention team that would be contacted if they suspected a child had some special needs. That committee would make a decision, and then that decision would be passed on to an AEA consultant. That AEA consultant does the testing, decides yes or no, and then gets back to the SIT committee with a plan of action, how they're going to measure progress, and how they're going to follow up in 6 to 12 weeks. The administrator, kind of the same thing, really didn't know much about when the AEA took over. They would take over and get back to the special education. But he worked quite a bit with the head counselor to get the recommendation started and to get the AEA involved. Paraprofessional did not know very much, kind of had an understanding of the concepts, but didn't have anything to do with the process, so wasn't very familiar. Most challenging role and why in regards to special education. The special education teacher discussed communicating with parents, getting the parents on board to follow the plan of services and to have them help out. Without their help, it makes the implementation of the services pretty challenging, and with their help, it seems to speed the progress of the plan quite a bit. The administrator talked about behavior management, talked about if the behavior was related to the IEP, if so, going one route, if not, going another, but quite a bit in the world of special education, the administrator was dealing with behavior management issues, and that was the biggest challenge. Paraprofessional, also behavior management, and also catching up students that missed a lot of school. The students she works with, tardiness and absences are too routine, so catching those students up on the work they've missed was her biggest challenge. Most rewarding part of the job, special education teacher, the students that didn't want to leave her room because they appreciated her help, they showed pride of improvement, and so she was really excited about seeing students progress and then showing it on a daily basis, and also showing it with the peers that weren't in special education. The administrator working with the life skills students, he had an appreciation for that. Really had an appreciation of interacting with them throughout the day, seeing them in the hallway, seeing them in the classroom, and watching their improvement over the last 3 years. It's been quite rewarding for him. The paraprofessional in special education, seeing student progress, seeing it on a daily, and she has seen a lot of students come in as freshmen and watch them progress over the course of 4 years. She says that's been pretty rewarding. What advice do you have on supervision of special education staff? The special education teacher really talked a lot about structure for the staff, communicating expectations and holding the staff accountable, making sure that supervision of the staff, there was a lot of visibility and accountability. The administrator talked about quality time of development, making sure special education was working well with general education. He talked about how there's a lot of communication problems between general education staff and special education staff. So working hard to kind of make co-teaching better and making the relationship between those teachers more effective. Paraprofessional, listening to the needs of staff working with students is important, making sure that there's the administration is showing support while supervising the special education department, making sure that they're properly staffed as well. How do you work effectively with parents of special needs children? Special education teacher could not say enough about communication. Often communication, making lots of phone calls, keeping the parents up to date on what's going on with the student, and making sure that any questions that they have are answered. But communication is very key. Administrator also talked about good communication. As an administrator, he talked about having quite a few calls in regards to special education and just having patience and understanding working with the parents when it comes to that. Working well with general education teachers that have special education students, and being the go-between special education and general education. The paraprofessional had no parent contact. How do you work with regular education teachers with students with special needs? The special education teacher, you could kind of tell that she had some frustrations working with some of the general education staff. Talked about it was challenging at times, and how some teachers are much easier to work with than others, much more receptive to the accommodations that are put into place, and some teachers are hesitant and lack the skills to provide the accommodations needed, and she said that can be challenging at times. The administrator talked about ongoing training. He's doing a lot in the last 2 years with development of co-teaching and co-teaching models. So also understanding IEPs, making sure that teachers could separate student learning and differentiate when it comes to their lessons was very important. Paraprofessionals, providing the support needed for the general education teacher, listening to the needs of the teachers and making sure those are implemented. She seemed very receptive to that and seemed like she was very knowledgeable about working with both special education and general education teachers. What advice for first-year administrators? The special education teacher just has a brand new administrator in the building now. Make sure that they spend time understanding their role as an administrator, making sure that they're comfortable in the position, they communicate well with the staff, and they build relationships with the staff. The administrator could not stress enough the importance of IEPs and not to dismiss them. They're a legal document, making sure that you take them very seriously and have follow through with them. And also have follow through with the general education teachers to make sure that they're following through with the accommodations needed, and good communication with the parents. Paraprofessionals stressed administrators visiting the classroom, being a visible presence often, being supportive and listening to staff. Describing the role of special education teacher and the building principal. Special education teacher, just providing support and accountability. She really stressed the importance of having at least someone on the administration team that has special education experience. And she has always had someone with special education experience, and she says it's very helpful. The administrator, just mainly working with the IEP, making sure general education teachers and special education teachers understand the IEP and the accommodations that are attached to it is important. Paraprofessionals, really no difference. Didn't have a lot to say on that subject. Characteristics do you seek in aspiring administrators with regards to special education? Could not get enough about communication on this one. Leading by example, and able to bring general education and special education department together and make sure that they work very well together. The administrator also talked about the ability to follow through. Paraprofessional talked about being supportive, involved, and once again, having good communication skills. So communication seems to be a big theme in most of these questions and in the expectations of an administrator. So kind of the thoughts that I had in moving forward as an administrator in regards to special education is making sure that I have a good understanding and working knowledge of the special education laws that are in place, the policies and procedures. It's very important. Need to be an effective communicator with all the staff and the students and the family. Need to have follow through, patience and understanding when working with the parents, but also I think just building relationships with the students and the parents and the teachers is very important and can make that piece a lot easier. Also, one of the other common themes seems to be really getting the special education department and the general education teachers on the same page. And I think that really means getting general education teachers more training on special education and special education laws, and making sure that they understand how to implement accommodations into their classroom effectively. So thank you.